And you are turning into Fantasy Fastbreak. This is the edition in between the years, you guys. And I'm joined with my host, Todd Boss. We have so much to review with you guys. We are excited you've been with us. We've seen some highs and lows in your fantasy picks, players through injuries, through marriage, through first wins. It's the whole gambit, and juniors that are getting in the mix. It is exciting. It is an exciting time to be part of Fantasy Fastbreak in its inaugural year. And if you played with us, obviously you felt the shift as we went through the year. And all of a sudden, the early rounds stopped being predictable based on who was showing up, who stayed healthy, who was doing everything in between. So let's dive into it. Let's start the review of where we are right now in the season.
Welcome to Fantasy Fastbreak, the Racquetball fantasy podcast that puts you in the seat of the GM and delivers insider breakdowns you won't find anywhere else.
It's good to see you again there, Brian. Happy New Year to you. Happy holidays to everybody else. We have turned the page to 2026. Now, interestingly, for the last few years, this has meant the beginning of a new season. However, we have pivoted back to the fall to spring schedule. So technically, Brian, we're kind of in the middle of the 2025-26 season. And so now's a really good time because we have this pause, we have this nice break. Let's talk about real quick, what we saw happen in 2025, who we saw kind of break out, and what that means, from a fantasy perspective. Because as you know, Brian, we're all trying to be the best and do the best job of predicting, and it's good to kind of see and take a quick look at who has kind of broken out and done cool things. So the first name that comes to mind is, of course, Andrés Acuña. He's Costa Rica's number one. He's a longtime player. He's been gradually kind of working his way up, and he got his breakthrough win. He got a win this past year. He won in Denver at the World Singles and Doubles Championships. And not only that, Brian, but he beat the King. He beat Kane Waselenchuk in the final, 14-6. I don't know if you remember that match, but he kind of ground out and got a surprise, not a surprise, but he ground out a first game win and then just blew him away in game two. But Brian, what do you think? How's Acuña looking? How do you think he's faring heading into the new year?
I have this picture of Acuña I can't get out of my head. This kid with hair down to here. Kid, mind you, when I first saw him, down to here. He had legs. Each leg was bigger than me at my highest weight. Airy and just all these things, right? And forgive me, this is who I want to paint you the right picture. And the man that we see today.
Yeah.
One of the most fit specimens on tour. I watched him on Instagram grinding it out as he would transform his body. He started taking control of the things he could take control of. And what we've seen over the years is him being stable and sticking to the kind of player he is. I think that's what's beautiful about Acuña is he doesn't try to be somebody else. He doesn't see other players hit shots and try to play outside of himself. He sticks to what he's good at. He's a grinder. He is a powerful, powerful man. He is really clean between the ears. He's human. He's not perfect all the time, but for the most part, the consistency between the ears is beautiful. And I love how he beat Kane. I talked about before, I've been proven wrong as we were in the last event, but Kane was ranked in everybody's head for free. He's that good. He sets such a precedence. So for Acuña to come out in the draw that he did, to do it the way he did, what a way to kick off the year.
Yeah. There was recently a discussion online about somebody postulated the question, what's your favorite scoring system? Is it 2 out of 3 to 11, kind of like the classical amateur international scoring, or is it the old school 3 out of 5 to 11 win by 2 that the IRT had for 20 years, in which we've heard may be coming back? And, you touched on Acuña's level of fitness. For me, I've always been partial to that 3 out of 5 to 11 because for the professionals, my argument has always been that it's not just about skill. It's not just about, being able to hit shots. It's about bringing it all in. A true professional match should feature racquetball skills, athleticism, endurance, fitness, and the mental aspect in order to win a match. And I think that 3 out of 5, those long, you remember back in the day, those in the mid-90s, those fifth game, 12-10, just those amazing matches. And I hope that we get back there. And if we do get back there, Acuña is a perfect example of someone who could outlast other players on the court.
Absolutely. Yeah, I would love to see the balance. And to your point, I would love to see that we've never seen, and maybe it was, and I just wasn't around for it. the golden age of racquetball, 21-point games, but rally scoring. And of course, here's my fantasy, and people are going to lose me here. Go back to the original mold of the racket, use today's technology, but small rackets. Let's balance out the offense and defense, but also those longer 21-point but rally scoring matches will give finally favor to players getting in shape. And I'm going to call a spade. You see a lot of players out there that are not physically fit winning matches. And racquetball was the total encompassment. You had to be sharp between the ears. You had to have equal offense, equal defense, and it was grueling. You had to be in shape for it. And that's why you see legends of the past, whether it's Sudsy, Cliff, Roberts, Brumfield. You just see these guys. Hogan is the perfect example. Yellen, all these guys back. Incredible shape. Rocky Carson, Jack Cusack, incredible shape. Kane Waselenchuk, when he came back after his time off, incredible shape. It's amazing. It's not a mystery, these number one players. So anyways, I'll get off my high horse here. That's what I think.
All right, let's move on to another player that has, kind of not come out of nowhere, but spent a lot of 2025 trying to build on a big result in late 2024, and that's Jordi Alonso from Mexico. He's had his 2025 after he made a final and got a famous win over Kane later in 2024. His 2025 was, it was kind of up and down. He made a semi, but he didn't really sustain. He didn't really have that impact. If you're trying to make picks in 2026, are you picking Jordi?
In 2026, here Jordi is a dark horse, right? He's a heartbreaker, and just like Javier, right? Heartbreakers, because you don't know which one. And at this level, and I'll finish my thought here, at this level, consistency matters, right? Acuña is a prime example of it. Kane is a prime example of it. Conrado is a prime example of it. There's consistency, and there's a reason why those guys are sitting at the table, usually the ones that are eating, right? It's just consistent. You see players who fluctuate, and Alonso's one of them. I will say this, though. It is so good. If you check and you go on the IRT tour, you go to their link online, you're going to see Jordi Alonso in the top 10. And that tells you what he's done is enough to get him in the conversation. And Todd, here's I'm going to put it on Jordi. Does he have, I want to find out more about him and see if he has the audacity to start challenging himself rather than just being in the conversation, becoming the conversation. But hats off to him. The top 10 in this era is no joke. Congratulations.
Yeah. All right. So moving on, Alan Natera had kind of a career year in 2025. It's hard to remember, but just 2 years ago, he was ranked, he was playing a full tour of a full slate of stops, and he was in the 20s. Now, suddenly, in the last year, he's made a semi, he made a final, and he's worked his way back from a pretty significant knee injury to not really lose a ton of points. But right now, he's also happens to be stuck in that 8-9 seed range, which means he has a really tough round of 16 against a skilled player to then get a matchup against Kane in the quarters. So from a fantasy perspective, what do you see for someone like Natera?
I think Natera is a lot like Mar and Alonso. You don't know, and they have produced really good wins this season. It does come down to health. It does come around to being consistent with showing up. It is in regards to health. We've seen Natera work through an injury. We've seen him open up a business. There's been other stuff that have taken away from the consistency of his run on the tour. But I will say this, and this is just my humble opinion. In the 2025, in the beginning of this season, so to end out the 2025 season, I don't think anybody, and we have a lot of hard workers. This is like, I want to build this credit for Natera. I would give him my token for the guy who has worked the hardest to get where he's at. I admire his work ethic. I watch him on Instagram and all the social media platforms. Him and his wife, Carla, they are out there. They do the things like you think it's just about showing up to tournaments, you young bucks. It's not. These guys are out there grinding. They get it. They are thriving on controlling the things that they can control, attitude and output. Natera has my token of appreciation for the work he puts in. I would definitely be betting on him in the 2026 season.
All right, I got one more name for you. We could talk a lot, and I like to talk about, I know you do too, some of the younger players that are coming up. But I want to throw one other name out there, and that is Eduardo Portillo. So Portillo, as we know, has a career. He's gotten his pilot's license, which has made it difficult for him to tour. So last year there were 7 events in 2027. He missed 3 of them. The other for the 4 that he made, 2 finals, a semi, and a quarterfinal loss where he ran into Kane in the quarters. Every time this guy shows up, he wins. So if I'm fantasy, are you looking and seeing where he is in the draw? Are you predicting him to make a run every time he shows up?
Admittingly, Todd, she has been the hardest one to predict for me because we don't know. You look at the inconsistency of showing up, and it's not a bad thing. He is building a life worth living for. I mean, isn't that the name of the game? We love racquetball, but he's building a life worth living for. He's traveling and he's going intercontinental, and he's developing a career, and the time that it takes for that. Like, there's no doubt that Eduardo Portillo is an extreme example of discipline. And for me, on a personal note, it has been one of the most beautiful journeys to watch since Jose Diaz playing celebrity doubles at the U.S. Open and winning that, I think, with Beltran at 14. We're like, who's this kid? The same thing we've gotten to see. We've got a front row seat to Eduardo Portillo when, he can barely hold the racket up with 2 hands. And now he's a tier 1 tour win. Like, he's had the fantasy racquetball experience. So as we look to the 2026 second half of our season, he's another guy that I'm going to venture out on. It's just knowing the when and the how to pick him based on where the draw's at, where he's at. And I, like all the other guys, I am watching. I have a master's degree in stalking. I watch these guys online, and I will be watching to see what work he puts in. I know he does a lot of stuff down in Mexico with his girlfriend, Alessandra Herrera. They're another couple that are out there grinding, and it's beautiful to watch.
Absolutely. All right, well, let's talk about the 2 big names on tour right now. Kane Waselenchuk is now 44. He was born in November of 81, so I think that puts him at 44. My on the fly math may be failing me under pressure. He's still number 1. He's actually number 1 by a fair margin right now, by several hundred points. So he's not going to be kicked out of number 1 for some time. Mm-hmm. Interestingly, as has been the case with Kane for a number of years now, we seem to talk more about his losses than we do about his wins, because it is so rare when he does take losses. And one of those losses most recently was to Conrado Moscoso, and something that we talked about a few weeks back. Moscoso just played absolutely lights out to put a loss on Kane. But where do you see Kane heading in 2026 before we talk about Conrado?
He's going to get some more ones. Like, that's a no-brainer. Helen Keller can see that for the 40 yards and back line. It's an obvious thing. The guy is still a dominant force. It is so cool to see, whether you're talking with, former world number 1s like Carson or Monchich or Swain, or even, rest in peace, Charlie, when he was still around, to hear how these guys talk about him and how excited they are at his age, which should be the twilight years. And yet he is still pushing. He's still at times setting the bar. He is the example. So do I believe he's going to have a few more wins this season? I do. Do I believe the egg has been cracked? Do I believe that these young players are cracking the code? Yes. And we have visual proof of that. We've seen Acuña do it. Bredenbeck's on tour. He's done it. We've obviously seen Conrado do it in remarkable fashion. I mean, that match was outside of the Flores in Conrado Moscoso quarterfinal and the Golden State Open. That was one of the most amazing things to watch of the 2025 season, was the fashion which Conrado did with Kane. But to bring it back to the GOAT, and he is the GOAT, that will never change. It's like Jerry Rice's receiving receptions. That record's never going to be touched. What Kane has done will never be touched, probably as long as you and I are exhaling and inhaling. Okay, Todd? So, I appreciate everything this guy has done. He's got more wins in him, but I think we've seen the code cracked, and it's going to be good to see where this tour is headed because of the legacy and what he's currently exuding right now.
Yeah, so let's talk about Kane's number 1 rival right now. Moscoso is not quite back up to number 2, but I think it's hard for any observer to not argue that he is the second best player in the world right now. The last time that, Moscoso does have a couple of head-to-head wins over Kane, including the last time that they played. And Moscoso has managed to work his way back from a pretty significant injury himself. He had a pretty major arm injury at the end of 2024, and then he suffered a round of 32 loss, if everyone remembers. He lost it to David Horn back in March, where he just kind of gutted out a clear knee injury. But since that point, back on tour, his only 2 losses from that point forward were to Kane. He lost to Kane in Denver in August, and they lost to Kane in Eugene in September. And then he's won the last 2 tournaments. He's kind of cruised through the last 2 tournaments. He's on a 9 to 10 match win streak right now. So the question is, Brian, we talked about what does it take to beat Kane, right? And I surmised, or I predicted in the last time that at the last event, that the best way to beat Kane is to try to catch him in the second of a back-to-back, like when they have the quarters and the semis on the same day, or to catch him early enough in the tournament where he may not be like in playing shape, which is essentially how Jordi Alonso beat him back at the end of 2024. Well, that's one thing. The other thing is that you have to play basically zero defect racquetball. You have to make your draw. You have to make your serves. You can't let him get his feet set up. You have to play error-free racquetball. Can Conrado play at that consistent of a level to beat Kane at the consistency that he needs to become number 1?
So yes, the short answer, but as you know, I'm going to go on a 10,000 foot spree here. I do not. So here's my message to every player on tour, to everyone who's trying to break in, the juniors, the guys that are there, the guys that are finding success. The narrative of Kane and how great he has been, and that's a fact, has got to go, because everything you just said, the serves being good, you need to make your shots. When you're in Plum City, the ball's down, the question's asked. Taking your time, knowing when to take time. This is what you do with every player. Just because Kane has set the bar and found the most consistency more than any other player on tour, it doesn't mean that every other player shouldn't be treated this way, and I approach Kane differently. If you practice the way you would play Kane, because he is the standard, I'll give him that. This is how you should be treating every player. And maybe that's where the inconsistency comes for these guys who, number 1, have the ability, and number 2, have the drive to be at this level, because talent's going to get you so far. Being in the conversation, these guys at the top, they don't care to just be in the conversation. They're there to win. And so 2026, I'd just like the guys to see, like, hey, we now see visual proof. We can take them. Moscoso is the light. He is the guy that above everybody else, right? We see a little spark with Flores coming. What do you know? Both players from Bolivia, separate conversation. But it's not like other guys can't. I just think tweaking the mindset of how you approach Kane as opposed to other players, it should be the same. Every term, it should be it has to be this way. So I think what's great about Moscoso is I think you need to be a little crazy to be at this level. He's a lot crazy. He is a lot. He's obsessive about it. And the last thing I'll say about him, to see what he did in the last event, to not only win the singles winning against Kane, and then the doubles with his countryman, Kadim Carrasco. I mean, this is exciting racquetball. Moscoso is the North Star of what the future looks like.
100%. All right, before we pivot to the next section, I want to throw out one additional thing. For those of you that follow the tour, you may have seen the social media posts that the ball contract has changed. We have a new ball that's going to be played with in the 2026 season. It is from Brian, you're and our buddy, Mr. Mauricio Zelada, and his company, Formula Flow. And I want to talk a little bit, just real quickly, about, Brian, neither you or I has played with this ball. However, we've gotten a little bit of feedback from the industry. The ball seems to be a little bit smaller, which means it's going to play a little faster. It is not quite as thick as the Gearbox Black, which the tour has been playing with for a while, which I'm assuming means that we're going to see the ball play faster. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what that means for specific players. First off, Brian, have you heard anything about this new ball?
The truth be told, Mauricio Zelado, I know you're watching this. It's going to get back to you in one way, shape, or form. I need a case. I have zero experience with this ball. I want to know what I'm talking about, to get the feel of it. It's brand new. I want to honor your commitment to the sport. But I want it for free. So just keep that. I want that to run space in your head until you do it. But no, Todd, I don't have experience with it. I know,
Yeah.
I watched Sudsy and Leo talk about it on their podcast. That's where it got brought up. And Mike Kinkin, that's a whole nother conversation to his commitment of
Yeah.
racquetball, but they brought it up, and that's where the news got broken. And I'm really interested to see who this benefits. My imagination tells me this ball is going to be a little faster because I'm indoctrinated. I couldn't stand the blue pen ball. I mean, everything, you felt like you were playing in Colorado in every single tournament. It was just zooming. But here's what I like about it. We watch international players and all these young guys that we're going to spin off to here in a second. And growing up in the Sudsy and the Cliff and the Derek Robinsons and all these guys who could just, Mitch Williams, who could hammer, Ben Croft, hammer the ball. Especially when it comes to doubles, I think this is going to be a great pivot for the IRT. I think it's going to shake up our fantasy, the way we start looking at players. That's going to start, and mind you, this is fantasy because Mauricio hasn't sent me the case of balls yet. I don't know what's taking him so long. But I look at players who, as we've picked him through the season, the Jake Brenenbecks, the Javier Mars, the Alonsos, right? Natera, guys who can wallop the ball. And I wonder what this does for players like Mania and for Perea, right? All these controlled players. That not that they can't hit the ball, it's just not their game style. So I wonder if this is going to start going in that favor. And if it does, obviously throw Kane in there as a guy who can handle the ball too. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Like we talk about the externalities or like the court factors that play into every match. Is the match being played at altitude and who that benefits? That benefits Bolivian guys and Costa Rican guys and, maybe guys that come from certain parts of Mexico that play at altitude, or the Denver guys, for example. Concrete versus panel. Those concrete courts are going to play faster. They're going to favor more power players. But those panel courts, especially at certain places where it's older panel, which is worn down, they play into the control players. And then you also have kind of humidity and the ambient air temperature. When you play on the west coast of the U.S., especially when you're playing in Southern California and especially in Northern California, where we now have, or in northern and in upper Northeast, that humid, that thicker air, that impacts the ball. So if I have a slower ball in Portland playing on panel courts, that plays a heck of a lot different than concrete courts in Denver with a fast ball. And we all know this. And that has to play into your predictions when you're playing fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
So all that being said, we're going to pivot now. We're going to start talking about something else that Brian and I can opine on for another 20 minutes. Let's talk about the future of racquetball. Let's talk about some of the youngsters that are up and coming. We are at this interesting period where we're almost missing like this middle class of the sport. When you have someone who's age 44 and number one on tour, who's the next player that's going to come up? Who's the next generation that's going to be leading the charge? We're going to run through a couple names here. We're going to trade off and talk about people and what we think of them. First up, I'm going to talk about Jonathan Flores. He just finished up another World Junior title. He's from Bolivia. He has come up and he has made waves when he has shown up in the U.S. He's gotten good wins. He's pushed Kane in matches to the breaking point. He probably should have made a couple of semis or a couple of finals. He had a couple of 11-10 losses that were just crazy. He presents kind of like a control player, but he also has some pop. But most importantly, when you see Flores on the court, he presents like a veteran. He doesn't get rattled. He does not get nervous. He just kind of keeps his whole physique in control. And I like him, and I hope that, especially someone from Bolivia who has to make a huge travel logistic plan every time he shows up here, I hope that he can continue to play the tour.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
what's interesting, Todd, about Flores is I've watched you pick him, and it's never really been the thought in my mind, and here's the reason why. I never really got to watch him. I didn't watch too much online stuff in the past couple of years. Occasionally I would pop in when I, wanted to see, I liked a matchup, but I've missed the opportunity to watch him. I hope everybody, as we go into Fantasy Fastbreak, you're staying more plugged into racquetball. I enjoyed watching him at the Golden State Open. This guy's the real deal. I think he has a lot more development to go because we're not just talking about him as another top 8 player. This is a guy we're actually considering to be a world number 1 potentially. right? Great potential there. There's a lot of raw material work there, but I think, you being on him and picking him has really opened up my eyes. I wouldn't be surprised, depending on the draw, if he becomes one of my picks this year. He's almost a safe bet, but he's in the infancy of his tour, so we'll see.
Yeah. So, Brian, tell us about Diego Castellum from Mexico.
So I gravitate towards crazy. Anyone that's ever come in my path will tell you that. And Diego Castellum is no shortage in that area. He's got he's a couple layers short of a 7-layer dip, just like yours truly. And I recognize that about him. And I'm not talking about his intelligence. I'm talking about his obsession with the sport. He's obsessed with it. I follow Flores. I follow Gastelum on Instagram. I encourage you guys to do it. Get invested with these guys. It's what drives me for my picks. This guy's had some incredible wins this year. Of all these guys we're about to talk about, and I'm looking at the list, this guy has done the best job of consistently showing up. He's made more tournaments. He's made more sacrifices, going from stop to stop to stop, living out of his bag. Called out the right of attrition back when I was trying to just compete in the qualifiers. You would watch these guys who pair up in hotels. It's like 8 guys to a room, and they travel to try to break into the top 10 and make their way through it. This guy's lived out of a suitcase, I think, for the last month and a half, traveling week in and week out. And if he's not in a tournament, he's hitting on the court. He is obsessed. I love the level of his obsession. I love, he chats to himself on the court. I think that's where he's going to start running in. Although I love his personality, Diego, do not change. Okay. But like all these guys we're going to talk about, there's just development to come. And I just pray, rather than getting down on yourself or thinking that you need to be better than you are, that you just enjoy the journey. Just enjoy what's being presented to you. But Diego, by far and away, especially not only this year, but by next year, I am betting more chips on this guy for sure in Fantasy Fastbreak.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time before he gets a breakthrough win. I mean, like the last 4 losses he has on the Pro Tour, he played Moscoso tough. He nearly went tiebreaker to Alonso. He lost to Montoya 7-12. So he's just getting unlucky in these round of 16 matchups. So, well, speaking of kind of rising juniors, Brian, talk to us about our Texas duo, basically the two brightest hopes for Team USA from the junior perspective. I'm talking about DJ Mendoza and Cole Sendrick.
Right. We've got the staples of the Breton Becks and, Nian, and obviously what they're doing. They've always done since I've been playing racquetball up in Northern California. And I know Oregon does it and a few other places, Minnesota, Missouri, like they've got some region programs. But I want to focus on what's happening in Texas because they got a lot of great support. DJ Mendoza, he won it out in a big singles match. And I think it was against Cole for USA singles or whatever it was. It's been awesome to watch their journey starting out as partners and how they both, they're finding their journey through racquetball. And sometimes it doesn't mean you do the same thing with each other. Cole is, he presents really well. He is in college. He's big into what he does. He's quick, right? He has great quick twitch muscles. He has a thirst. He has an anger on the court. He's a lot like Diego. He's got a little crazy in it as well. He's got more of that approach to it where it's got to be quick and impactful and this. And I'd like to see some refinement in him, but he's a great look to the future. DJ has a more raw, complete game. He's got the touch. He's got the power. You know what I like? He's got a lot like Sudsy. He's got a great, and Tony Carson has this as well, a great first quick step to the ball. So he's got that good presence. The opportunity for DJ to work through is knowing that like if he sticks to his game rather than what it looks like, and I'll explain this, if he stops focusing on looking good and he just starts believing in his game and increases I'll say this about DJ, he needs to increase his participation at events. I love the raw material overall with DJ and all these guys. Like what he possesses is incredible. He just he's got to get vulnerable on the court. He's got to put himself out there, give everything he's got, and maybe experience a loss. I don't know what he really needs, but just put himself out there to find more about himself. At times, you can feel him just get it back a little bit, afraid to lose. We all walk through it. You're not alone with that. But these guys, and I'll reel this back in, these guys it's a great look at the future. And after watching Worlds, there's more, but we can talk about that when they start playing the tour. So super stoked for these guys. I love that DJ's taking time to play with Kane. Thank you, Kane, for the development of this guy. I'm sure you're helping Cole out as well. I love that Cole's dad travels with him. Great future. I'm being redundant, but great future with these two.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about another kind of another international player that's really made waves this year, and that's Gerson Miranda. He has, for those of you who don't know who he is, he's Bolivian born, but he repatriated to Argentina. He won 18U World Juniors as kind of his coming out party for those that had no idea who he was. That was back in 2019, beating some really good names along the way. And since then, he's been showing up at a tour events and just getting these kind of under the radar wins. So, Brian, what do you think of Gerson?
It's weird, Todd. This is actually, I don't really know a whole lot about him. And here's the weird part. This is of my 2025 season. And what I've gotten to watch, somehow he instantly became one of my favorite players. Just watching him play, it's not that he performed amazing at the Golden State Open when I got to watch him live and really intensely observe his game, see where, he's not up to par for the pro game. I think really what I'm drawn to the most about this kid is he's got heart. He has a really good head on his shoulders. He can pound the ball if he wants to. He gets himself out of position a lot based on, the shot selection. But that is something so tangible that you can fix. You get around the right coach. I know there's a lot of players out there. Suzzy's someone that comes to mind. I mentioned a lot in this episode. Weird. But Suzzy's a guy that works really well with international players. If you've got a pro in your area, like I'd love to see Gerson get around someone who has the know-how of what it is. Once again, another guy needs to increase the participation because he's got the fun. He's got the foundation. I see enough game in him. He can be a top 10 player. I love the passion that he plays with. He's a silent, passionate guy. And I just want to see his game develop. But Todd, in short, this was one of my favorite players to watch, and I'm very curious to see what more happens with him.
Definitely. All right, let's talk about one last player, kind of in the same vein as Miranda. Another player that was Bolivian born, had a bunch of World Junior titles before he then switched over to Argentina, and that is Diego Garcia. Diego Garcia is a player that I am constantly selecting to get upset wins because he's demonstrated it internationally that he has what it takes. This is the guy that won the 2025 Pan American Racquetball Championship. Here's who he beat, by the way, to win that title. He beat Mexico's Sebastian Fernandez in the group stage. Then he beat Jake in the quarters, Conrado in the semis, and Javier Mora in the finals. I mean, those are 3 top 10. Those are 3 top 5 IRT pros. So this guy has what it takes to win. Interestingly, he hasn't always shown up to play when he's come to play on the tour. And I don't know why that is. I've talked to some pros. I've talked to some people that are in the know. And there's this interesting dynamic in international competitions as compared to the pro tour. Internationally, you travel with a coach. You're there with your team. You're representing your country. And you have a lot of guidance, a lot of structure. You have practice schedules and you're ready to go. When you're going to a pro event, you're flying there by yourself. It's on you. It's up to you to go to sleep and to not go party all night and to show up and get, to prep for your match and to make your match time. And believe it or not, these are all things that he hasn't always necessarily done. He took a forfeit in Chicago because he didn't show up for his match time, which is kind of inexplicable. You fly 5,000 miles from Argentina to Chicago, and then you show your round of 32. So these are the kind of things that come with professionalism. They come with playing. He has the talent. He has the ability to basically beat anybody on tour when he gets on the court with them, but he's just got to be able to put it together mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, and this was another guy, the firsthand watch, I've seen him online a little bit, but my firsthand watch of seeing him was at the Golden State Open. And to see him play, so I think of all these players, I'm sure they've had their moments, but the time that I got to the experience of watching him you really get to tune into a player when they're in a match, regardless of the score. I think what I really admire about this guy, and there's a lot of hope for international, like making the international tour international, is this guy didn't care exactly, like his priority wasn't the score, right? I never once saw him take the foot off the gas pedal. Watching this guy make a habit of the right now, which is not something like that comes from the heart, and that comes from like belief, and it's fundamental with this guy. Watching him play with the silent intensity that he has, another fascinating pick. So I might be jumping on your bandwagon, Todd, here a little bit, seeing when you pick Diego. I might double down myself.
Fair enough. All right, so one more thing that I think that both of us want to impart before we move on to the next section. If you're a young player and you happen to be listening to this, if you're one of the players that we just mentioned, just be aware that when you show up at one of these events, the veterans are watching you. The veterans are taking note of, they're watching your match. They're scouting you. This may not be like professional baseball where people have advanced scouts and teams pay somebody to kind of get the book on you. These independent operators at like professional athletes on the racquetball tour, they are figuring out how to beat you even before you even think about playing them. If you don't think that Kane Waselenchuk is out there scouting and has an opinion about how to play and how to beat Jonathan Flores or Diego Garcia, then you're not understanding what it takes to be a pro racquetball player. So just be aware, hold yourself accountable, hold yourself to a better standard, and always be aware of how you present to other pros.
100%. And Todd, is not the best time to arrive like right now. So like you can't win the matches that you don't show up to. You can't make the shots that you don't hit. And there's so much talent out there. It would just be amazing to see the floodgates open with these young players. And let's just talk about it. It's just fear. It's the fear of the unknown. What happens? These guys are giants, and you get out there and you find out more about yourself, and you're going to have the time of your life. Racquetball has been an amazing part of my journey for over 20 years. Todd, I mean, somehow you're 23, but you have 50 years of experience in the sport. It's incredible. Look how it's changed our lives. Look how we are still a part of. And yet these young guns have a way of making it, joining an elite club of top players. And the best time is right now, you guys.
100%.
So Todd, as we hit the clearing of this week's breakdown, as we head into the 2026 season, it's only right as we go into a new year after a season of gratefulness. We just really want to say thank you. Thank you to some of our tour friends out there, people who are ride or dies, people who see the vision of where we're going with the current executive officers that we have on the board, with Negretti and Mania and Falahar. Like, the tour is heading in a great direction, and we can't kick this section off without talking about a guy who I believe we finally have the right piece in place in Keith Miner with KW and Gutterman. You're talking about a guy who has taken his business, his whole family, right? They've just grown their business, and so to have a guy in there that has the know-with-all. And he also stays within his realm. Like, he lets people do their job. Regardless, I'm going to speak from the heart and just say, Keith, thank you so much for everything you do for racquetball. Thank you for making all of this possible. Because of the vision that we've had the Fantasy Fastbreak. We've seen players hit their stride. We've had outside entities that we could have a whole section on that are developing young players like Dovetail and what have you, right? We've had apparel come because of you. Thank you. And there's so many more to thank, but we have to start with you, my friend. Todd, who do you got?
Just a doubling down with thanking Keith for sure. I mean, this guy's been underwriting events all around the country for years and years. He's a great person to be in charge of the IRT right now. I want to call out Frank Hotels and Mark Frank in particular. This is a guy that's based out of the Pacific Northwest. He's a racquetball addict. He has expanded his business, and at the same time, he's expanded his presence and his sponsorship of events. He's employed racquetball staff in his company and brought them on board, specifically, to Sudsy Monchik in particular. And coming later this year, which I don't think a lot of people know about, Frank Hotels is completely underwriting what I think they're trying to present as another major for the tour. So that's going to be coming in September. The R2 site is open now, and that's just another step forward for Frank. It's one thing to throw some bucks and help an existing event run, but to be the title sponsor of the event is huge. Next up, I want to call out Papa Nicholas Coffee. This is a Chicagoland-based brand that has long been involved with the Chicago-based events. The tour's president and current and new commissioner, Dave Negretti, of course, is also based in Chicago. And these are the kind of relationships that have been in place for now and have continued even with the new ownership group, which is a great sign to see. But when the tour goes to Chicago, it's always great and it's great to have those Chicago-based sponsors involved. Brian?
Absolutely, Todd. And, this makes me think about like the future of where we're going and like, why are we mentioning all these people? Not just because they're tour partners, because we get to do what we get to do because of visionaries like KW and like Frank Hotels, Papa Nicholas, you know what I mean? My personal favorites. I have to give a shout out to WinBallBall.com and obviously ProKenix. But when I talk about the future, I'm talking about black and white energy, like as a result of these three we just mentioned, we have, and there's others too, right? But we have this new tour sponsor and I'm excited to see how they integrate, excited to see how they market with the players we have and where that marketing goes to, right? Using them to do their commercials and seeing what player they brand themselves with, what tour stops that they're going to brand themselves with, what this means for racquetball. It's an incredible move. And just want to say thank you for joining in. It was such great news to break that we had black and white energy and now we're in the 2026 season and people are curious. So thank you for being a part of that. And Todd, how do we feel about one of the, if not the oldest run tournaments in IRT?
Yeah, so the first event that we have of 2026 is going to be the 46th annual Louis Drug Pro-Am. 46 years running strong. Mark Gibbs is the tournament director, also a part owner of the IRT. And this event has long been considered one of the biggest events on the tour stop in terms of them sponsored players to come, and from a hospitality perspective, they have a player banquet every year there. That has always been kind of fun, and you're just gonna have to hand it to a sponsor like Louis Drug. These guys bring pros to Sioux Falls in South Dakota in the middle of winter, and they have a blast. This gets a ton of local press, both in traditional media and on TV, and this is kind of the dream. This is what you want to see. Also coming up about a month afterwards is a kind of a newer tournament on the schedule. It's the Minnesota Hall of Fame event, and it's spearheaded by Karen Bredenbeck. Karen, of course, is the matriarch of the Bredenbeck family. Jake and Sam of being the players. But she's also a person that has been involved with Minnesota racquetball for decades. She was nominated for the USA Racquetball Hall of Fame this past cycle. Someone that has spent a lifetime contributing, giving back, and now they have this now longer running pro event that's big on the schedule and has become a mainstay. And this is the kind of relationships and these are the kind of people that make the pro tour work and make it go around.
Yeah, absolutely. Karen, you said it all. I'm just going to leave it alone, which is like a spiritual experience for me. The last thing I want to mention here, and to thank, when we talk about Tour Friends, the sponsors, because ultimately it is why we get to do what we do. This was a brainchild from Mania to start this project. And so thank you, Adam. And in right fashion, lastly, I'd like to thank the Golden State Open. Yes, we have Eclipse Swain doing what they're doing. And yes, we've got Sudsy pairing up with Mark and what they're doing, and Karen, what she's doing, and Lewis doing what they've been doing for years. And so many people went into Unstepping of a Tracktown. But when we look at the model, not for just a racquetball tournament, but we're talking about an event, an experience, I think is the correct way to respond to what has been had at the Golden State Open, from going from court wars to where they're at today, from having a stadium court to now both tours who were brought in on that project, and the vision, how it's growing, and the participation and who it brings in, former pros, what have you, builds a community together at a nice club. The standard for events is the Golden State Open. The marketing is fresh. The food, the hospitality is bar none. The play is incredible. The players appreciate it. It's got a hotel attached to it. Like, it's just the whole bill. And so when I look at an industry standard on the IRT, I just want to say thank you to the Golden State Open for being that light. Thank you to all of the tournaments who step up to the plate, because it gives Todd and I the ability to have this platform to talk some smack. Unfortunately, experience some humility that I'm losing to Todd right now in fantasy. I don't understand. Hell, I must have frozen over. I don't know, because my picks are good, but these players aren't doing what I want them to do. I'll bite. Thank you, Golden State Open, for being that beacon of light. Well, hey guys, that's going to wrap it up for me. I'm Brian Pineda here live with Todd Boss. It's been excellent kind of wrapping up what it looked like and where we're headed. You can always follow me, Brian P. Live, on Instagram, where I follow all these players that I've been talking about. But what I really want you to follow is at Racquetball Tour on Instagram. It's where you're going to catch all the latest and the greatest news, apparel, things coming up. It's where you can get more entertainment and more information on how to do Fantasy Fastbreak and all the action coming at you for the remainder of the 2026 year.
Speaking of fantasy, make sure we would love everybody to sign up first. To sign up for the IRT Club. It's just a little bit of money a month, and it gives you access to, to all this fantasy stuff that we're talking about. It gives you early access to this podcast that you're listening to. It gives you, and of course, one of the main reasons that you want to sign up there is because it gives you access to additional streams, private streams that are not available to the general public. So make sure that you join in by going to irttour.com and signing up for the IRT Club. And when you're there, make sure you click on the Fantasy Fast Break, and before every event, we've got 6 events coming up in the next 6 months that you get to play fantasy, compete against Brian, compete against me, compete against our other first place participant right now, Mr. Samuel Murray. We want you to compete against us and prove us wrong.
That's right. And follow us wherever you listen to your podcast so you can receive tournament breakdowns, and make sure to drop us a rating. We love you guys. Happy New Year. And that's going to be it for us on Fantasy Fastbreak.